Hello YouTubers. Today I want to show you my collection of Mossberg Mannlicher style 22s. I have 3 of them here. Mossberg made, I think, 5 different varieties in this particular stock configuration. The first one I have here is a 51 MB. It's an automatic. Semi-automatic, 22, which I picked up just a few months ago at a show. I might have paid just a little bit more than I should have, but it had all the original sights on it. It has a 100, an S100, an S102, and the front sight with the 4 apertures. Here. I did have to get a hood for the front sight, which I didn't have at the time. It shoots nice. I've cleaned it up. I put several coats of tung oil onto it, the way I like it. I don't really try to take the finish off. I like to try to keep the same stain that was used by the factory originally, because they did change them over the years. They were lighter when this gun was first made in 1939. It was discontinued in 46. There were several years when it wasn't manufactured at all during the war, because Mossberg was using 100% of their capacity to make arms for World War II. The next one I have here is the Mossberg 42 MB. It was the rifle that was made for the Lend-Lease program. Most of them were shipped to England. You'll notice here, hopefully you can read it, it says United States property and a serial number. It is bolt action. It has been, again, I cleaned it. It had a darker finish on originally. This was actually my father's gun. And everything except for the rear sight, which was replaced back in the early 60s because the sight was broken or missing parts. We went to a hardware store back in those days when they did a lot of different things, and had it replaced. It has the original sling on it. It's a Boyd 1946, and 43, excuse me. It is stated, it is right there. I don't know whether you can read that or not. Boyd is still in business today, making leather products, and they own Allen, which you may be familiar with. They make shooting apparel, bags, and things along this line. This sling has my father's name in it. He was in something called the Home Guard here in Maryland, and this gun by the serial number was manufactured probably in February or in March of 43. I know in October of 43 he went to the United States Marine Corps. So I don't know whether he purchased this gun or whether it was given to him and he just ended up keeping it. They never asked for it back. I don't know. He didn't use it in the Marine Corps. These weapons were sent to England for training purposes starting in 44, and there was 46,000 of them manufactured. After this, Mossberg continued manufacturing the same gun, except in a more American or more traditional stock where they didn't have the forestock on it, but the internal parts are virtually the same, and that is the 44 MB, or sometimes known as the US. It was sold to the Navy, Coast Guard, and was later used by ROTC units after World War II. These weapons were used to train raw recruits in how to shoot, and they're an excellent shooting weapon, and they overall you can't beat these guns. Mossberg was one of the few was probably the only manufacturer that made a 22 in these stock configurations, and they were quite popular just before World War II and for a number of years afterwards. They later became, I think, a little heavier for a lot of new shooters. These weapons usually weigh around 7, maybe 7.5 pounds, depending. They are a little bit heavier than maybe some young shooters would like, but actually are better become a good marksman is a heavier weapon. The last one I have here is the Mossberg 151 MB. This one started to be manufactured in approximately 1947 after the war. It is a semi-automatic. It somewhat similar to the 51, except the internal parts are a little bit different. This one I picked up some months ago at a pawn shop, and changed, didn't have the sights on it, except for the front sight. It did have this sight here, but it was missing the slide, which I replaced. The back peak sight would cost me $65. I could actually buy the ring and mount, because this has a dovetail on it, and that's what the 1 actually means, from the 51 to the 151. And I could buy this ring and mount for $38, and I picked up an inexpensive scope off of Amazon for less than $22. So for $60, I put on a scope on this particular weapon, and find it is really a lot of fun to shoot. I enjoy shooting 22s. They're inexpensive. They don't beat you up, and you can go out and do a lot of plinking, target shooting, and actually for hunting. This weapon was made up to 55 or 54, and then was discontinued when this particular type of stock configuration kind of fell out of favor, and Mossberg went back to the more traditional stock without the four stock on it. All these weapons are as original as I can get them. There are some actually things that have been added. All of them did not have the hood on the front sight. For those of you that own a Mossberg and are missing that particular part and have this type of sight that often has a number of different apertures on it, I recommend you get this. It really will improve your sight picture, and it makes the whole gun look a lot nicer. It protects the sight. It easily goes on and off. It slips on. You can change the aperture, and like I say, you will get an excellent sight picture if you're using iron sights. So, and it's only like $8, and you can find them online. Haviland out in Missouri has them. I know, because this is where I've gotten them, and they're nice people to deal with, and they know a lot about Mossbergs. And if you've got any problems or any questions about any weapon that you own, call them. They'll be able to answer all your questions. a lot of people talk about the Mossbergs and their plastic trigger guard, which a lot of people call cheap. But when some of these guns were originally made, designed in the late 30s, it was somewhat of a new item. It is a nice gripping. Somebody has small hands, new shooters. It makes them putting their hands, fingers, well positioned on the gun to learn to squeeze the trigger. I recommend that. This, and I know the guys, a lot of people say it looks like a cheap piece of stuff, but then again, they're probably the same guys that have got some of these new weapons that are all plastic to start with. So I just question, whether that's a big deal. It isn't to me. You can get all those parts should you break one, or should they plastic become deteriorated. One of these, the guard has been replaced on this one. This one is the original, and as far as I know, this is the original one on here. Two of the weapons have plastic butt plates. The oldest one, the 51, has a metal butt plate, and the two semi-automatics are butt fed. They are here and go in. So this is my collection at this time. I hopefully will get the fourth one, which is a 46 MB. It has a feeding tube at the front up here, and that was one that was designed. It is bolt operated, just like this one. This one here is clip fed. So they use different systems for on these, but they're all kind of neat. I like them. I like the looks of them. Some people say they're kind of ugly looking guns, but they really aren't. They're a typical military style weapon that's been used for well over 100 years. So should you have any questions or comments, please write me. Thank you.